We're touching. We are having a good time.
God put our mouths on our heads for a reason.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
Everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Yowza.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Yo!
I didn't really know where I was going with that until I opened my mouth.
Nobody really does. But we are, this is being scheduled for Memorial Day, right?
That's right.
So for Memorial Day, we thought we'd look at some war movies.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
I'm going to pick a fight.
And you're gonna start a war.
I love this job.
Ooh, wow.
Did your parents have any children that lived?
Sir, yes, sir.
I bet they regret that.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Sound good?
Yes, sir.
And talk about some of our favorites and best and, you know, just general discussion about war movies.
Basically, it's going to be 30 minutes of talk about Small Soldiers.
That's right. That's correct.
Which is one of the most underrated war movies ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, that was one of those early DreamWorks films where they assemble all this great talent and they had a really clever idea, and the movie just falls flat in a couple spots. But I think it's a lot more enjoyable than you probably remember it being.
No, I enjoy Small Soldiers.
Yeah.
All right,
Joe Dante of Gremlins fame did that one. And I have seen more and more over the years people saying that they love that movie because it is more than just, you know, toy soldiers run amok.
Right.
Because there's a lot of things being actually said in this movie that, you know, you wouldn't expect from, you know, some PG-13, you know, toy soldiers run amok movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, where do we want to start on this?
Well, you know, most of the war movies that we've seen are probably set from an American perspective. But, you know, there's obviously a lot more breadth to it. And whenever I think about war movies, for whatever reason, my brain goes to something like Braveheart. Mm-hmm. Because we always talk about the cutting and all that bullshit with action movies, how you don't know your location, you don't know the space and stuff like that. And I think Braveheart in particular, and I haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge yet, but Mel Gibson has a way of showing you where the position is in the battle, whether it's like big, wide, sweeping shots, characters saying we're going to flank from the right side or this kind of thing, or like go over there, do it, and let the English see you do it. Yeah. And then they come back around, and then like when you have that sort of thing, you have perspective and everything makes sense. And then you get into the nitty gritty of the fights and all that stuff. That is great battle editing to me.
Braveheart was an outstanding movie. I mean, it still is, I think. But it's an outstanding movie as far as showing us, like, it was the first one that I really felt showed horrors of war that viscerally. Like, we had seen horror of war, obviously, like a lot of different type of things, but like, you know, the blood splattering on the cameras and, you know, getting really up in there and all that, and done really well. And plus, it might be one of the last times, other than maybe Lord of the Rings. I don't remember if Lord of the Rings had a lot of CGI in their battles, but that shows you how good it is if they did have a lot. But Braveheart was all extras.
Oh yeah. And you know, I mean, this is like, it was 1995, right? Yep. So this is like all brand new. You see these savages who you at this point, you know, are not truly savages, but it's the great part is the intimidation factor. They're painting their shit all blue. Mm-hmm. They're acting like savages. They're showing off their nut sacks and everything to the English. And then, you know, they get in there and they just eviscerate literally this English battalion that thinks they're going to win easily. And you just see, like, everybody looks around, and William Wallace is just like,
yeah.
Oh, it's great.
I think people forget how we had never seen anything like that in terms of both the scale of the battles, the brutality of the fighting, so much actual, you know, in-camera, non-CGI type work that, you know, again, I think everybody's going to be expecting us to go right to Saving Private Ryan for the entire podcast. I'm going to take a left turn after this movie and go a different direction. But I believe Braveheart it's not as good to me when I watch it, kind of like what you were hinting at, as it was when it came out.
But it's still insanely watchable. It came on, I don't know, a few months ago, and it was just randomly on. And this is one of those movies that I've seen probably 30 times, but I had not seen it in forever. Yeah. It's one of those type of movies. And it came on, and I was like, oh, okay, it's about to get to this scene. And it's about to get... There are some really silly things in Braveheart, like, that don't age well. But overall, I sat there and watched the rest of the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. You can't watch that movie without realizing what a great technical director Mel Gibson is. He's had his ups and downs in his personal life, and he came back this year with Hacksaw Ridge, which again showcased his ability to cut action in this just incredible way. You can't deny the man has talent as a director. It's the same kind of thing I get when I watch Dances with Wolves. It's just a little too self-indulgent at times in terms of how long certain scenes are allowed to play out. And trim that sucker by about 25 minutes, you might have a better kind of product there.
Yeah, well, especially at the end for Braveheart.
Yeah.
That's his predilection for torture porn, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, signals where we might go in the future.
Exactly.
I want to talk about Mel Gibson some more, because I put The Patriot on my list of war movies to talk about, because I think these discussions about war movies do not only come from an American perspective, which I'm about to do, but we always go right to World War II and Vietnam, right? And the movies that kind of covered those eras, and there are plenty of great movies there, and we'll probably talk about some, but the American Revolution isn't a war that gets a lot of movie love, and it was one of my favorite things in school to learn about. In fact, I minored in history up until they told me I was going to end up 2 credits shy, and I just said, fuck it, and so I didn't take an extra class to get those credits. But I fucking love the American Revolution, not just the war part, but everything about that culture. I think this is his best film, the director, Roland Emmerich.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know if you've seen The Patriot recently.
No, I mean, yeah. You could easily say
we're looking at 2012 and The Day After Tomorrow, Independence Day, and Universal Soldier. This has,
now that's a classic right there.
Yeah. And now we talked about the scale. There's one huge battle at the end of The Patriot, but most of the movie is about almost guerrilla tactics employed by Mel Gibson and his Frontier Minutemen, what have you, and the way they set up ambushes and fake the British out left and right. And again, it's just Mel Gibson is very engaging. This is, in my opinion, peak Gibson. He's playing a hero who's troubled and tortured. That axe scene where he axes the guy 22 times after he's already killed him, and his just brutal fighting style that has made him a legend. But he's fighting a cause that you can get behind. He's lost family. Heath Ledger's in this movie.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of people, actually, Tommy Tomasino from The Sixth Sense is in this movie.
Oh.
I really, really enjoy it. I don't think it's perfect. It's a little sugary, both in some of the mustache-twirling British Jason Isaacs is the bad guy. And they go a little too far with some of that, but it makes me smile. Every time it's on, I find myself gravitating towards it. And we just don't see enough movies about this era.
I haven't seen this movie since it came out.
Wow.
It was 2000, I believe, is when this one came out.
I think you're right.
And only thing I really remember about The Patriot was it was basically a mini movie theater story, because we had a sneak preview of it at Hollywood 27.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of these things where, like, the lens kind of popped out or some shit happened there in the middle of the movie, and it got blurry. And we went down there, and I was like sitting there like, it looks like the lens is where it should be and everything. And I got out the lens cleaner and started cleaning that. Nothing was working. And then I found out that it was just, maybe it was like a smudge on the inside of somewhere. It was fucked up. We eventually got it, but kept on starting it up, and it was always blurry no matter what I did. And Russell, who we've brought up before, who was always the guy who ran those things, basically.
Yeah.
He like got everybody in the theater and was the guy who would be up in the front and telling everybody. He came out because we stopped the movie, and he came out and he was like, it's like, yeah, we're up there. We're trying to fix this thing right now. We'll get it up. No problem in the next 5 minutes or so. So, because there were a lot of people like yelling at him and stuff. And he's like, and don't worry, and you'll in about 5 minutes you'll still be able to get to watch your free movie.
We'll shut him up.
Yeah, just remind him it's free. Well, I would recommend, if you're flipping channels and you see The Patriot on, give it another look. I think it's better than you remember it, even though I don't think it's great. But it's just sort of like calling The Island the best Michael Bay movie.
Yeah.
But and my wife was a really big fan. I think that's how I got turned on to watching it whenever I see it. But it's good stuff.
It's good. It reminds me, I was watching a little bit of Dazed and Confused the other night, and it's 1976 that they're getting let out for the summer. And the teacher, as they're leaving, is like, "Don't forget when you see all this bicentennial stuff, that you're celebrating slave owners that didn't want to pay their taxes."
Yeah.
That reminds me of the Simpsons movie when he gets to Alaska. Here's $1,000. What? About time, but why? We give every resident $1,000 in exchange for letting the oil companies ravage our state's natural beauty.
I thought you were about to do the wait a minute. Wait a minute. I didn't tell you how World War II ended. And everybody stops. We won! USA!
It's also another great Simpsons one is when there's Apu that goes for citizenship, and like they ask him what started the Civil War. He gets this whole long drawn out thing with all these economic and cultural. Just say slavery.
It's funny. We have a big difference between the heroic war movies and then, of course, Vietnam. I don't know if I can name one Vietnam movie that has any kind of glory to it, right?
Well, and that's for a reason.
No, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Although there was a movie that came out around the Vietnam era that was all like championing it and everything, and it was a terrible box office dud.
Rambo 2?
It was Rambo 2.
Okay.
It came out like in the late 60s or early 70s or something like that, and people at that point had already like sort of had enough of Vietnam. They didn't want to hear anything about it being a good thing,
Yeah,
right,
and everything. And so then they, all the stuff that started coming out was the critical of the war and everything, the Coming Home, Deer Hunter. And then, of course, the ones that we really sort of grew up with: Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now. Those movies, every single one of those is about how, and each one has a different aspect of how fucked up that war was. Apocalypse Now, of course, was it's more of a symbolic journey type of how fucked up Vietnam was.
Yeah.
It gets downright like just the darkest possible that any movie can get as far as being
Heart of
anti-war.
Darkness. Yeah.
Platoon is also super dark, but it's more about like, this is what soldiers go through, and this is what, anything goes type of a war will turn you into.
Yeah.
Platoon and Casualties of War, which is a Brian De Palma movie, they both have the same kind of themes in them and everything. Casualties of War is just a weird movie because Michael J. Fox is trying to play up against Sean Penn, and it's just a weird mismatch.
Yeah.
Well, and he's also not playing the golden boy we're used to.
Right.
And so, that's one of those ones that I'm sort of glad kind of fell off from the pack.
Yeah.
I think this is how we're going to view war movies going forward, though, because after World War II, and even something like Hacksaw Ridge celebrating one story within there hasn't been any definitive wins, and there likely won't be from this point forward.
Well, no, that's the funny thing is that once we start getting to the Gulf War type stuff, and you have both early 90s and last decade type of stuff there. You have Three Kings, which is more about, it's not only about soldiers trying to make away with Iraqi bullion and all this other type of stuff. But there's the casual line by which they say George Bush has asked the refugees to rise against Saddam, and he's not backing them. He's not actually giving them any soldiers or anybody or Marines or whoever they are. Don't want to get people upset there. But Three Kings and Jarhead, which was the early 90s Gulf War and everything, which was mainly about how boring war is and how you're sitting there wanting to do something so bad, that's how.
No, yeah, and that's why I like both of those movies, and I like Jarhead probably more than most people. But Three Kings is territory that I don't think we've even seen since.
No, I agree.
The way it was shot, the way it was written, the way it was performed, like, man, that's such a good movie.
Yeah.
Another good Gulf War movie is Courage Under Fire.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of It opens with a tank battle that's actually pretty thrilling, even though it's tragic. And then most of the war stuff we see is in flashback when people are sort of being interviewed by Denzel. But that's one of my favorite Denzel roles. He acts the shit out of that movie.
That's a movie that I'm always surprised when I go to the IMDb has got like some 6-point something rating.
I don't get that.
Oh, really?
Like every time I've watched Courage Under Fire, I've just ended up really loving it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think some people have just decided they hate Meg Ryan in that role.
Or her accent.
And her accent and her trying to act tough, I guess. And so that's never really bothered me.
No,
much.
I thought she was great.
Yeah, I thought she was fine. But I love the way that movie unfolds, man. It's just, I love it. And yeah, you get your classic alcoholic Denzel in there.
But it's the best alcoholic
Yes, it
Denzel.
is.
And
Yeah.
Scott Glenn is in there as
Yeah.
the reporter trying to chase the story and then eventually almost bonding with Denzel and just kind of letting him, let it all out one night at a bar. I love that movie. I don't know why it would be so lowly rated.
Yeah, it seems like something that, would have, especially nowadays where people have sort of removed from it. The movie's like 21 years old now.
Yeah.
Where people would be more removed from it, you start getting that new generation of people watching it. You'd think it'd get back into the 7s or something like that. But people have really always, sort of been about that movie, even though it's great, I think. But yeah, it's one of those, it's Rashomon type of a type of storytelling and everything, and he's just trying to get the truth as to whether she's a hero or not. And I just love how everything gets revealed in that movie. It's really well done.
It really is. And babyface skinny Matt Damon.
Yeah. In fact, Matt Damon was, I think he had to get that thin for that role.
He
or
did, because
something.
the character is like shooting between his toes, doing heroin and shit.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
This was the year
he
before-
overdid it. He he was like 90 pounds or
Oh,
something. It was
geez.
it wasn't 90, but it was something like, it was something crazy. I don't think he needed to go that far. And then apparently it was great because he got to eat a whole bunch afterwards.
Yeah, man,
and
that's
get
gotta be
back
the best
bulked
part.
up and everything later on.
Well, that was the year before Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, Good Will Hunting and Rainmaker. Rainmaker was
yeah.
sort of a little prelude to Matt Damon.
Another
becoming a-
movie I think is better than its reputation.
Yeah.
It's a sweet, slow little courtroom story, but I find it really watchable.
Yeah, me too.
You got some John Voight scenery chewing in there. Virginia Madsen, nervous smoker lady.
Oh yeah.
Danny DeVito being Danny DeVito.
John Voight is hilarious in that movie.
He really is.
He's so evil, but he's hilarious. He's so funny.
And Danny Glover's the judge, and he keeps cutting Rudy so much slack throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
In a real courtroom in the real world, they would never have gotten that lawsuit as far as they did because he kind of bent a bunch of rules to let Rudy have a chance.
Yeah. But Damon obviously also was in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
There's a couple of weird things too. Saving Private Ryan, Matt Damon was basically on press junkets and stuff for Good Will Hunting, while all the other people like Vin Diesel and Edward Burns and all these guys were actually doing real as much real military
Celebrity
training.
military training, yeah.
Exactly. The type of thing that Ben Stiller makes fun of in Tropic Thunder. But like he was off doing all, they wanted him to have this real animosity towards Damon during the whole movie. I think it's a really effective type of thing because he's off partying and doing Oscars and stuff like that and everything. And so they're like, we're really going to have to go find this asshole, They kind of did that with Brian De Palma kind of did that in Casualties of War with Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn. He kind of wanted to keep them separate from each other and everything. Didn't want them to bond at all. So he sort of shielded Penn and all the rest from him.
Fascinating.
No, I mean, it's a good, these things we talk about like that and with the antagonism with Kubrick and The Shining with Shelley Duvall, you get the results, and even though it's traumatic, probably, I'm sure it was less traumatic for Damon. I mean, Matt Damon was in that movie for 10 minutes or something like that.
A very small amount of time.
Yeah,
just at the very end, right?
Yeah, he's not in it until they finally kind of just stumble upon him.
Yeah,
and then there's that one big final battle at the end.
And then we got Spielberg though with his he can't resist that saccharine ending tack on where we cut back to the old man.
Old Matt Damon.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, Saving Private Ryan is famous and beloved for a reason, and I would argue largely it's that opening Normandy beach scene, which, just like we were saying about Braveheart, nobody had ever captured that the way he did in that film.
Yeah.
Plenty had tried to make war tense, and I mentioned this in a previous podcast. I'm fascinated that Chris Nolan is going so far out of his way with his Dunkirk movie to not emulate the style of Saving Private Ryan or even the bloodiness or brutality of war. He wants to highlight the anxiety.
Yeah.
Dunkirk, another movie worth mentioning here. It's about war, and it's about a war that doesn't get enough movies made about it. The Great War, World War One, as I used to call it back in the day.
That's right.
And it just gets glossed over entirely, in my opinion, in American history classes by the enormity of World War II. And a lot of that has to do with who we were fighting and what Hitler was doing, and that wasn't really going on in World War One. But so many deaths, so many people died in World War One, and so I'm sure for ancestors of those soldiers, it's nice to see a movie that's going to be made to sort of honor their sacrifice.
Well, they'll also get Wonder Woman too.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yep.
That will be
That'll be primarily about World War One. It's funny.
The stuff about this World War One, man. When you hear about this type of stuff that was going on back then, I mean, it's just nothing but like instant loss of life as soon as you like basically join the army and everything.
Yeah,
it's like how bad it was. Like it was, I believe, and I'm no historian, but like if you ever listen to like the Dan Carlin podcast where he talks about it, he has a big American history series. He comes out with a podcast like every 6 weeks or so, even longer sometimes. It's well researched things. But man, the Germans had like all these like crazy weapons and everything, but it was still like a war of attrition type of thing. They didn't have very many. Everybody was losing so many soldiers that nobody could advance anywhere. It was one of those type of things where it was so senseless,
Yeah. Well, also the Civil War. That's the most costly for American lives. Of course, it was just Americans killing Americans, so it sort of makes sense.
Yep.
But I remember when I was in school and I learned about that. I think there are more U.S. casualties in the Civil War than every other war we've participated in combined.
Is that right?
I think it was like 600,000. I think it was something like 600,000 deaths.
Actually, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
In the Civil War. And of course, we just had Lincoln a few years ago, which deals with some of the Civil War. You don't see a lot of on the field type stuff. It's not really a Civil War.
And we talked about Courage Under Fire. Ed Zwick did Glory, which was a big another like really. I would have never known this story if it wasn't for Glory.
Yeah.
Maybe if it hadn't been made, you would have heard something way after that. But Glory is an outstanding movie.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's Denzel's first big chance to shine, and he hits it out of the park.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I don't think he's an alcoholic in that movie.
No, he's not.
Not yet. When he goes home.
Well,
no.
This was the first time that I'd ever seen some sort of depiction of a slave and his bare back before. And I just, at 12, I saw this movie at 12. Just being horrified at it, and just you can't bring up Glory without that scene where he's getting whipped and he's just looking at Matthew Broderick the whole time with this intense stare, like and it's just unbelievable. But that's a great movie.
Yeah. While we're on Spielberg a little bit, let's talk about War Horse.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yes.
That was the angriest I'd ever heard Chris early on in the podcast, is when he described that scene where they all get.
He was clearly offended by that movie.
Oh my God. I'll never forget. I was sitting in the theater just going, fucking really? I mean, by myself being able to watch this movie, obviously. And I was like, you fucking kidding me? They've called a truce to pull the fucking horse out? There's a scene in a movie that they're doing that?
Was that a World War I or World War II movie?
Both, isn't it?
No, I actually can't remember.
He galloped across wars.
I thought the horse fought in multiple wars.
No, it was World War I.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It doesn't really matter.
It's a fucking horse.
It like I said, it's the red violin for horses. If you've ever seen the red violin, great movie.
Yep.
There was this movie, in the 90s called $20. Did you ever see this movie? A lot of big people in it. It's one of those vignette movies that basically it just keeps following whoever has possession of this $20 bill. And so guy spends it at the gas station or whatever, and then we follow the gas station attendant until he spends it, and then we follow... Anyway, I don't know why that came into my mind. It's not a war movie.
Well, it's got that same red violin type of thing where you see
right.
something getting passed along to owner after owner, and so on and so forth.
Well, for World Wars, definitely the big granddaddy is World War II, and I think you can keep mining stories out of that. And we just saw something really you really liked Hacksaw Ridge,
I did.
Right?
Yep.
And something like that crazy of a story coming out this late is pretty amazing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like they're always finding, new things about, or maybe it's not new. There's always been a story about it, but it hasn't hit a mass appeal yet or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you look at so Kurt Vonnegut was actually a soldier or a Marine or whatever he was.
Yeah, now we're afraid to say.
Yeah, exactly. He was fighting in World War II in Dresden when they firebombed, when the Allied firebombed him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was a prisoner of war, something like that, or he was in there somewhere.
So it goes.
Exactly. And he went out and just saw this ravaged nightmare landscape and everything. And this is just one story that really hasn't been brought up again after Slaughterhouse-5, and God bless you, Mr. Rosewater, a little bit. But that's how rich all this stuff is. And then that's before you get the revisionist history stuff like Inglourious Bastards.
It's
too.
when you sort of consider just how many countries are involved in this, how many different. I mean, there's even, this war went on so long and had brought out so many characters that, like, Rommel, the Desert Fox, was somebody who was respected in all of this type of stuff. But, like, you forget about the African desert part of the World War II. You forget all about that. I mean, there's so many different theaters as far as World War II is concerned, and so many different aspects. I mean, so many countries doing so many different things and holy crap, what would have happened if the Axis powers had won that,
Oh, yeah.
Of course, you'd have the man in the high castle.
Man in the high castle.
Yeah.
Which the U.S. is split up into a Japanese West Coast side and a German East Coast side.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that, but the concept fascinates me.
I've seen 5 or 6 episodes of it. It's really good. I just haven't.
It's storyboarded partially by our buddy Jeremy Simpson.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That means it's good.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I guess so.
All right.
No,
what
it's a pretty good show.
Speaking of the Japanese, we have Pearl Harbor.
Yep. Yes,
wow.
we do. Okay.
What a segue.
Pearl Harbor. This is exactly why Michael Bay sucks, right?
Yep.
This is the epitome of why he sucks, because I remember seeing a trailer for Pearl Harbor and going, that looks fucking amazing.
Uh-huh.
Because there's the great music. You see that bomb's eye view and everything, which is going to bring me up into another topic here in a minute. But you see that bomb's eye view going down to the boat and everything. And I was like, man, this looks awesome. But then it was 2001 and Titanic was a huge hit 4 years prior. And they felt like we needed to put some sort of love story in this. And
Love triangle
in this, where, it's, they bogged the whole movie down with that.
Oh, totally does.
I mean, the whole thing. I mean, you couldn't you just not do that? Hey, man, someone told you not to do that. Someone forgot to tell you not to do that. But yeah, Pearl Harbor, From Here to Eternity basically just talks about Pearl Harbor that day.
Yeah.
That's about it. I mean, it may be a couple more days or whatever, but that's how you do fucking, you do something like that. You don't go through this whole, even From Here to Eternity has some love story in it, but it's not, it's not like this just bogged down fucking 30 to 40 minutes
fucking
of
mess.
In the Ed Helms vacation movie, I'm going to talk about some more later on.
Right.
There's sitting at dinner with his sister and her husband, who's a weatherman. This is Chris Hemsworth, by the way, almost steals the movie. And he's like in the middle, it cuts to the scene in the middle of him telling a story about, now I had a feeling this low pressure system was going to make a beeline over here to Texarkana or whatever. And then his wife interrupts and says, the governor said he saved 2,000 lives with that report. That's how many we lost at Pearl Harbor. So basically, he stopped Pearl Harbor. It's Leslie Mann that's playing the role. I just love that line. Basically, he stopped Pearl. And Ed Helms is so good in this movie because he just gets to react to that kind of shit and cock his head to the side. Anyway.
The whole thing about the Pearl Harbor trailer, and we see the bomb's eye view and everything, is something we sort of discussed, and it's sort of discussed with Schindler's List. The idea of making a war movie that is exciting, and we are being entertained by these people's deaths.
Yeah,
it is a conflict.
Yeah.
It is a difficult thing to sort of rationalize while you're watching a movie. Saving Private Ryan's opening 20 minutes is just it's terrifying. It's bloody as hell. I mean, there's a guy like trying to put his intestines back into his. I mean, it's that type of thing, and you're sitting there just like with your mouth dropped because it's so unbelievable, and like. At the same time, you're sitting there going, there's some part of you that's like, yeah, man, get me in on that.
Yeah.
Or, sort of like, it's, I want to take action right now, that type of thing.
And the thing with that is that it's going to be somewhat of a positive ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Pearl Harbor, that incident did not end well for anybody, except for, the Japanese briefly.
Very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly.
Ended much worse for them than us.
No kidding.
Once all was said and done.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's why. So, who are the war movies geared toward? Is kind of where you're going with this. Mm-hmm. Is it ex-military folks like Wes Bentley's dad in American Beauty, or is it like that are just like rah rah rah? We'll get out there and fight the bad guy, or is it people like us that? Well, why do we like war movies? Cheering for one side or the other?
I guess it all depends on the tone. I don't think Vietnam movies are made for people like the Chris Cooper, character or anything. But I do think that, movies like Saving Private Ryan are all about, that patriotism, man. Look at where we were when we were at our lowest.
Yeah, because also the Band of Brothers thing came right off of that, right? And that, I think, is what differentiates it from regular, even World War II movies, is after that huge piece at the beginning and then the huge piece at the end, it's basically them walking around and doing Band of Brothers shit.
Yeah, Band of Brothers, I think, was made for military members and their families, people who knew people that served over there, so that we could tell the story of what they went through and how they bonded. And there's not as much action as you think there is. And I love Band of Brothers, by the way. If I had that and Saving Private Ryan in front of me, I would watch Band of Brothers every time. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with Damian Lewis and all around Livingston. The acting just pulls you in very well. But yeah, that all came because of Saving Private Ryan and Tom Hanks' experience on that movie. That's why he's an executive producer of Band of Brothers, and Spielberg was as well. I had a point. It's gone. I just know that David Schwimmer's in that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Very un-Ross-like in Band of Brothers, but it's there's very little action, though. You're right. It's about them walking around and bonding and digging holes in the snow and losing their feet.
Yeah.
Good times.
And when that miniseries does get action-y, it doesn't make you rah-rah.
Mm-hmm.
It's brutal. Like, there's that episode early on with the blonde kid who's afraid to shoot his gun, and that whole battle that he encounters with I said Damian Lewis. What's his real name?
The actor's Damian Lewis.
I was thinking his name was Lewis in the show, but it's Winters. Anyway, so Winters comes up on the hill and he's shooting, and it's shot very staticky and with lots of like lens flares, and it's not supposed to be feeling rah-rah. You're supposed to be scared, and especially in those two snowy winter forest episodes where people are literally getting their torsos blown off by the artillery shells. So maybe he learned after Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan how to toe that line better.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is. I think when you get into TV miniseries type of things, you start exploring characters a lot more, and you get to feel. I think when in a movie they're trying to get you in, get you excited about it, and out. Whereas a Band of Brothers or something, it's like, let's take time to tell our story. We're not here to get we're not here for people's date night or whatever it is
Right.
that they're trying to do. And that's why I think a lot, as an aside, those Marvel Netflix series are better than most of the movies that they come out with, is because you get to sort of spend time with the characters and understand their motivations and everything.
As opposed to just lots of punching.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know that there's at least 2 or 3 podcast listeners that are mad that we keep ragging on the Avengers movies?
Oh yeah,
Their cutting style. Like one guy even wrote, I think it was on Twitter, like, what is your problem? You guys have some sort of a... Anyway, he was accusing us of having some kind of anti-Marvel, anti-Avengers bias.
Isn't that funny that you can never really say anything without there being a second hidden reason that you're saying that? Like, I can't just hate the action in Avengers. I must be some sort of DC, fanboy or something, which I am totally not.
Yes,
and
definitely not.
I think their movies are worse,
Yes.
but that doesn't make me a Marvel fanboy either.
Yeah.
But either way, it doesn't really matter. Eastwood has come out with a few of these.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was going to pose the question, has he made the most war movies of any other director? 'Cause there were at least 3 that immediately come to mind. Letters from Iwo Jima.
in 1 year he came out with Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima. I was going to bring up Letters from Iwo Jima because that is a different perspective that we had never really seen before.
Agreed.
This is from the Japanese side, where Flags of Our Fathers was the big patriotic type of American. I think I don't remember Flags of Our Fathers as much as I remember Letters from Iwo Jima, but I think that was all about the iconic photograph.
It was.
And what they decided to portray and everything. But Letters from Iwo Jima, that movie is outstanding. And I don't know if people really bring that movie up today, but it's one of Eastwood's best, actually.
Probably so, yeah.
Because I don't think we had ever seen, maybe we did, we just hadn't seen it in a long time, but seeing it from the Japanese perspective, because it's easy when, to pick sides, obviously, who's the evil ones in this and whatever. Remember that there's always another side, and they're doing what they think is right.
Which is very cool that he went to the trouble to do that. And I remember him at the time saying that this is something that we don't get to see from an American perspective. You always see the Flags of Our Fathers side. I'm going to, give you this other perspective. And it doesn't necessarily villainize or heroicize either side.
Yeah.
Especially in Letters for Iwo Jima. And Watanabe is fantastic.
Yes, he is.
Man. He's really, really terrific. That's a good movie.
And Eastwood has also then made American Sniper.
American Sniper, yes.
So maybe Spielberg has made as many war movies, but I can't think of anybody else that... I have to believe, if you're actually passionate about the movies you're making, it takes a lot out of you to make a movie like Saving Private Ryan, and it's not a place you really want to go back to a bunch, right?
I still do want to know how Spielberg, in that one little time frame, did Lost World, Amistad, and Saving Private Ryan, 3 movies all in 1 year. Now, I'm sure Lost World was like well in the can, but he still had to do Amistad and then Saving Private Ryan. Talk about 2 heavy back-to-back movies to do.
Yeah.
To do Amistad and then Saving Private Ryan.
Yep. But Amistad was much more self-contained, right?
It wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it was.
But it's still insane that he did all that.
To do all that all at once. He had taken a bit of a break because after Jurassic Park and Schindler's List, it was like a 4-year hiatus there. But he just kept coming out with stuff in that little period of time. But American Sniper is another sort of unique look at war, where we're not really looking at a particular battle or anything like that. We're just looking at you're just looking at one character and the effects of war on him, and really the whole effect of PTSD on a lot of soldiers and stuff, which is obviously a controversial subject.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem.
It shouldn't be, but it's a controversial subject. Some people don't think it even exists.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Those people are crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's a George Carlin was talking about how saying things as politically incorrect gets you sort of to see how bad it might be. We used to call that shell shocked, so he felt like if you just continued calling it shell shocked, there would be more people who would be sympathetic to the cause. But once you become politically correct, and call it post-traumatic stress disorder.
Huh.
People start saying, "Oh, well, that's a made-up thing."
God.
Interesting.
But anyway,
We play a lot of semantic games in this country.
yes, we do.
Jesus.
It's so petty. It's so petty.
Well, we should talk about Vietnam.
Okay.
What is your favorite Vietnam War movie?
That one quick section in Forrest Gump.
Something bit me.
Something jumped up and bit me on the buttocks. No. What's my favorite?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, again, I am uncomfortable even picking a favorite Vietnam War movie just because everything about that war was so terrible.
I know.
But probably Full Metal Jacket. I believe that movie, more than any other piece of anything in the media, has defined what a drill sergeant is to Americans, right? Like, to the point where there's no other drill sergeant to parody.
No.
It's just Arlie Emery, right? Ermy?
Yeah,
Ermy.
Arlie Army.
Arlie Ermy.
Yeah.
Now, are you a fan of the second part of Full Metal Jacket?
I don't really like a lot of these Vietnam War movies. I don't get into Apocalypse Now very much. I don't really care for Platoon all that much. I can respect each film for what it's trying to do, but I don't feel one way or the other about the second half of Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
I've always thought that was an underrated part of Full Metal Jacket. Was the second half. It's not nearly as good as the first half, and that's why a lot of people just don't like the second.
Yeah, and it's two separate movies.
It is. The first half has pretty much all the things that they had to say right there. The second half is, it's Matthew Modine is basically the main character at that point.
Yeah.
And he's got it. The whole thing is a struggle about peace and war and all that. Because he's got that, he's got the peace symbol on his helmet and the Born to Kill on the other side. And the one guy dresses him down about it. He's like, "What is that? What is that? You have a peace sign on one and you have a Born to Kill. What is that?" And he's like, "It's showing the duality of war, sir."
I don't think, and everybody knows how much I love Stanley Kubrick, but I don't think it has nearly as much to say as the first part. And I think he just gets bogged down. It's very good. It's probably one of the best Vietnam War movies, but it looks like a war movie.
Yeah.
There's a few shots. So we were talking about this a while ago. There's a few shots of the actual director going behind a camera crew that's going down the line of the grunts basically, and that's brilliant. And you can see little shots. There's them in that hallway waiting for you, and you see the people run across and everything. That's very cool. But the rest of it is just set like a war movie.
Yeah, the first half of it really does say everything it wants to say. Like it really honestly could have been that movie, because they cut a little bit out of that Private Pile story, because at one point he's absolutely changed forever psychologically because of this, but then he starts being awesome at everything, and then he snaps. Yeah. And everything, and that really kind of showed. That was the message of that movie, was that it just keeps driving into you that you have to be this way, and oh by the way, we're going to give you guns, and you're going to be able to.
Yeah, and what's crazy, it says nothing about the conflict. I mean, every once in a while, the troops are talking about it within their ranks and everything, but it doesn't really talk about Vietnam. It talks about the military.
Well,
and that's why it's so fascinating.
This is sort of what the theme of that whole thing is, when Arlie Ermy basically champions Lee Harvey Oswald. He's like, he's like, who's the one who shot JF Kennedy? And he's like, John F. Kennedy. It's a Marine, sir, Lee Harvey Oswald. And everything. That's right. Lee Harvey Oswald took 3 shots, is happy about it. Look at that great shooting that Marine did.
That's all he cares about.
Yeah. And so, man, looking at the sort of the deconstruction of that Vincent D'Onofrio character, he does so great, and it's so terrifying by the end of it.
I think the best Full Metal Jacket parody is in Kids in the Hall Brain Candy.
Oh, yeah.
That dad realizes he's gay.
Oh, yeah.
Has that flashback to his military days. And his boss his commanding officer says, "You go over there and fuck them. We'll stay here and masturbate." Yeah. And he runs off, and he's wearing assless chaps that are camo pants. And you see his ass as he's running over there to fuck the bad guy.
But Vietnam movies, as a rule, all of them have that fucked up. The Deer Hunter, which isn't really about Vietnam, you don't really see what's going on in Vietnam. It's all about the effects of Vietnam on somebody's character.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken's character having been in a POW camp and really just got to the point of just having no fear anymore.
Talk about a terrifying character when you see his bandaged head and he's fucking playing Russian roulette again, and he's the eyes are dead already.
Yeah,
Man.
you got De Niro coming back and saying, "Man, come on, you gotta get back home," and all that, and it's just nope. Yeah, he's lost.
Yeah.
He's lost.
Yeah.
So, and in Apocalypse Now, of course, is just all about how, Colonel Kurtz basically just, he's basically said, you know what, this war is fucked up, and I'm just gonna camp out here in this jungle and everything, and create my own society. And
well, I have trouble. I've seen it many, many times. I have trouble explaining what the point is of Apocalypse Now.
It's just shows it really is just the deterioration of a character, basically.
But but you only see it's about Colonel Kurtz, but he's only in there for the very last second of the movie.
It's about how Martin Sheen is looking at him and getting respect for this guy, and like, how could this guy? This is the best of the best. How could he be changed by this war? And that's basically what it comes down to.
But along the way, you've got this terrific war movie, though. I mean, you've got the shots in this, of course, the iconic, copters coming in with Ride of the Valkyries. And then Robert Duvall coming out. And I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Yeah.
And going out and fucking surfing in the ocean.
Charlie, don't surf.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's really got a little bit of everything. I don't think it's cohesive enough.
No, well, you can tell that movie, had problems getting shot.
Yeah.
I mean, Francis Ford Coppola, that was like 3 years of everybody's life making that movie.
And Martin Sheen almost died.
It's never, I don't think that movie has ever been about just one basic, Marlon Brando, Colonel Kurtz, he just created a compound and he went crazy. It's more about, I think, just what our feelings of Vietnam War in general were, like everything ultimately coming to no point whatsoever. We just lost a whole bunch of people for no reason, so on and so forth. That was an early Lawrence Fishburne movie, by the way.
Yeah.
He was like 18.
He was Larry Fishburne at that point.
Larry Fishburne Jr.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
Maybe I just pulled that out of my ass.
Maybe you did.
I feel like there's a junior in there.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Wait, check Alta Vista.
We can't look it up. Yes, Alta Vista.
All right, I'll see you in 9 hours.
But that isn't that the thing about the Vietnam movies? Almost every single one of them set out to show you how just awful everything is.
It was, and
Platoon definitely
has got to be the worst.
Playing the Adagio for strings while they burn down a village, and Charlie Sheen is walking around going, the fuck, again, it's what you're supposed to feel through Charlie Sheen's like, man, this is just a waste.
Yeah. And that is probably my favorite Vietnam War movie.
Yeah.
I think that's Oliver Stone at his, yes, of course, there's a lot of bullshit in his writing and his directing and everything, but that's him with, I think, the clearest point of view.
Yeah.
And that he's done before.
I like to believe that movie and Navy SEALs are both in the same universe. And Charlie Sheen was in Vietnam and then went on to be in Navy SEALs.
And then he goes to Wall Street.
Well, as mentioned before, Charlie Sheen remembered what he felt when his dad had the heart attack on Apocalypse Now to do the walkthrough scene in Wall Street when he's getting arrested.
Oh my God, that's such a good.
So him crying is him thinking of his dad. But yeah, Platoon, of course, it's just, it's got some other cool things, but it's got that Willem Dafoe, Tom Berenger little rivalry at the beginning. It's almost like two movies too, Platoon almost.
Yeah.
Early Johnny Depp.
Oh yeah,
And
I forgot.
that, too.
Oh yeah.
He was Larry Depp at the time.
He was Larry Depp. Larry Depp Jr.
Larry Depp Jr. You're right.
I'd never seen MASH. Have you ever seen MASH?
Yeah. You've never seen MASH?
I've never seen MASH.
Oh.
I love Robert Altman.
It's great.
I love every character that's in there, and never saw it.
You saw the show though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you can see where the show took its influence, but I never thought the show was as good as the movie.
Really? Isn't the common sentiment the other way around?
Probably.
Wow. I do hear that like it's an incredible movie though.
I love it.
Although there's a very loose feeling on MASH. MASH is I don't know. I feel like, do we really want to consider that a war movie?
Well,
I guess we could.
Is the movie actually set in the Korean War?
It's set in the Korean War. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of movies though that I sit there and do we consider it a war movie? Does it have to actually have war in it to be a war movie?
Yeah.
If it's set during that time, I guess if you're a medical unit for soldiers and everything, yeah, you guess it is. But good movie, but it's it's very episodic. This is why it became a TV show and everything. And there's a whole scene where they make a football team and they want to beat the other group of MASH or another group of military people or whatever. There's that. There's them playing golf, and like Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland are like playing. They take this one job so they can go and play golf. And it's silly stuff like that, but of course it's got its serious moments. And there's one moment, of course this is extremely Altman-esque. There's a guy in the movie who is afraid that he's actually gay. Like he's like had all these women, but now he's depressed because he thinks he might be gay. So Donald Sutherland like sets up a funeral for him where they're going to give him the black pill or whatever, and he's going to die and everything. Of course, it's not going to really.
And they sing "Suicide is Painless" to him.
They do.
The TV show's theme song has lyrics.
They
you
do.
Didn't know that.
"Suicide is Painless."
Oh, is that those are the lyrics of the song?
It brings on many changes, and I can take or leave it if I please. So. Yeah, there's this big funeral scene and everything, but they shoot it in such a way that it looks like The Last Supper and everything that.
Yeah.
So it's very Altman-esque and everything. But there's a lot of of course, really dry humor in it and everything. And I was in the play in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the play, man, has some just lines in it that you're like, you didn't even know you were saying a joke. Because that's how dry it is. There's a part in there where there's a character named Ho-John in there, and Ho-John says something, and one of the women says, "Oh, they'll like you in that tent over there, Ho-John. They really like spirits." And the spirits means they like drinking.
Oh.
And, it was just one of those type of things. I would have never known if somebody hadn't told me. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. I don't know. Yeah, it's really good. I just don't know if I would recommend it. It's one of those, it's very for its time, and yeah, very dry, but it's got some good moments in it. Duvall's in that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so we're gonna do this thing that we've been doing the past. Started last week with the SinCast Movie Club.
You can find me in the club.
You should join our club. You and your friend.
Now, if you're not going to take this seriously, perhaps we should disband the club now.
I love being a part of things.
Last week we did the comedies.
Yeah.
And everything. And this week, perfect for the war movies we just did, we're going to talk about vacation movies.
Hey, listen, if you're in America right now today, if you're listening on Monday, May 29th, it's Memorial Day. If you're anywhere else in the world, it's Monday.
That's right. That's correct.
So we're going to talk about vacations that Americans are taking right now.
Yeah, well, it's getting to be that summer season. I think that's a worldwide vacation kind of time of year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. Except for I don't know anything about the lower hemisphere. I think they're exact opposite from us.
That's right.
I mean, the toilets
I'm
go.
serious though.
Right.
I think Brazil has winter when we have summer and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So happy winter break, Brazil.
Yeah. Still go on vacation in the winter.
That was a funny thing also in The Simpsons where they go to Australia and they find and Homer finds the toilets go a different way or whatever, and then so they go to the American embassy and they're like, oh, these flush like American toilets here, and they've got the contraptions that make the toilet go down, and he sees the water going down, he's like, sweet land of here.
Nice.
Oh, what a good show. Okay, so we're breaking these down a little bit, right?
Yes.
To allow us to each give you more than one pick for this movie club thing. I believe, Barrett, you broke it down in terms of vacation movies that are great, that are underrated.
Yep.
What was the middle one?
It was recommended.
A full-on recommend.
Yeah, exactly. Or our personal favorite, ones that are great regardless, and then ones that are underrated.
All right, good.
Yeah.
I like that.
So who wants to go first?
I'll go. So as far as great, we just discussed. We just got through with our brackets, and Children of Men emerged victorious. Alfonso Cuarón obviously has made a lot of great movies.
Oh, you bastard!
And
I had this one written down.
What, Y Tu Mama Tambien?
I did. Yeah, good call.
Which obviously, I think the last time we brought up Y Tu Mama Tambien, somebody was like, "Oh, I want to hear a recording of Chris saying that. It's so hilarious." And I'm like, I guess I'm saying it wrong. But
Y Tu Mama Tambien. No, you're saying it right.
Y Tu Mama Tambien.
That's right. And your mama too.
That's right. And it's got Gael Garcia Bernal as another one I'm probably fucking up, and
he's so great.
And Diego Luna.
And Diego Luna. And it's it's a road movie, and they've brought this one woman who is way older than them, but is really attractive and everything, but she wants to go along on this trip. And of course, the movie ends up being this is their adventures and everything. They fall in love with this girl who's just kind of like, hey man, free love, man. It's not no feelings. Don't worry about it. I'm here to give you an experience. This is what you wanted. But there is, of course, more to this whole love story.
Yep.
And I don't want to ruin that. But Y Tu Mama Tambien is a great movie.
Yeah, it's beautiful, too.
Yes, it is. So if you want to get your Alfonso Cuarón fix, that guy is just on a different level.
So he had done Great Expectations in 98.
He did.
And then
he did a Little Princess earlier.
Before that, right? And then this was in between that and
Harry Potter.
The Prisoner of Azkaban, right? Yeah, this was really surprising. I knew nothing about this movie, and one of an ex-girlfriend brought it over and just said, let's watch this.
You still hang out with your ex-girlfriends?
Yeah, it was Tuesday. It was last Tuesday. No, this was a long time ago, but they brought it over, and I was like, wow, all right. And I was just engrossed the whole time. I mean, it's subtitled, and it's got it's through, what is it, like a Brazilian landscape, or what is it? What is the drive?
I can't remember.
South America, or maybe it's Mexican.
I felt like it was Mexico, but now I'm just a racist because I don't know.
It is Mexico.
It's through Mexico. Yeah, it's through this nice, beautiful Mexican landscape and little stops along the way, and it's just really, really engrossing all the way through. That's an awesome pick.
Yeah,
good call.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you went with what I would dub a non-traditional vacation movie. It's more of a trip or a road trip or whatever. Because for my favorite, I'm going to go with Almost Famous.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's essentially leaving home for, a few weeks to follow this rock band and their groupies all around the country. And you get to see the different cities he goes to and the experience he has. And I've raved about this movie enough. I don't need to do it too much more in this setting. But it's one of the best coming-of-age stories I think I've ever seen. And represents the pinnacle of what Cameron Crowe can do, in my opinion. As far as a great vacation movie, I'm going to surprise you a little here with the talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh, yeah.
Because, again, he is on vacation this entire movie. And it's being funded by Jude Law's dad. And he's living the life he's never had a chance to live before. It just so happens to not be a comedy. It's not really a fun movie. More of a murder, not even a murder mystery. There's no mystery about who's doing the murders. But will he get away with it, and how? Maybe I just was trying too hard to think out of the box this time.
No, no. That
absolutely.
movie, it really sort of, even though it's this weird psychological thriller type of movie and everything, the landscapes and the sun and all the stuff that they're doing and everything really kind of gives you the feeling of being on vacation with these guys.
Yeah, like you're taking a European vacation.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous.
There's Anthony Minghella who did this movie. And it's really, really like, even during the slow moments where they're just like singing in a bar or something like that, there's something really, I don't know, it's really something kind of, I don't know, relaxing about it or
it's
whatever.
Very European.
Yeah.
I can't get it. Apparently Europeans have this wonderful ability to gear down, and really, your wife probably experienced this in Italy, like to where you can take like a 4-hour dinner or like a 2-hour lunch, and you don't start your day by jumping into traffic. I'm sure a lot of Europeans do, and I'm generalizing, but in America, it's go, 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 and then you fall asleep, and then you get back up, and you fucking do it again.
Mm-hmm.
You scarf down
For
your
50 years.
Yeah.
You eat like a microwave burrito, and then you're fucking off on your way again. And that's the feeling that I get from movies like Talented Mr. Ripley, of like this European atmosphere, this relaxed atmosphere. I love that stuff.
Come, let's take a relaxed attitude towards work and watch the baseball match. The Nye Mets are my favorite squadron.
Just think about all those different things that they do in the movie. They're just lying out on the beach. They get on a boat and just kind of like, sailing.
Yeah.
And
how's the peeping, Tom?
Yeah, how's the peeping? But yeah, it reminds me of one that I wrote down as an honorable mention, Stealing Beauty, that is an Italian countryside. Stealing Beauty is, I don't know what to think of it as a movie on the whole, but it really does kind of get you, it's relaxing to watch.
It's all atmosphere. There's really nothing besides this entire village is interested in this girl losing her virginity.
That's correct. That's correct.
Which it's fine, I guess, but it's like, seriously, and it's this half-ass. She's searching for her father and stuff like that. It's a beautiful movie, though, man.
Yes, it is.
Start to finish, you'll become enraptured in it, but it's not narratively exciting.
It's interesting when these movies go to Italy and everything. It always seems like that. Like the movie may not even be good, but you can just kind of like, that was the way it was for me in A Walk in the Clouds, which was not a great movie at all. But I, just him going to the Keanu Reeves canoe, going out to the Italian countryside, falling in love with this woman who's pregnant and everything. But there's like the moment where they're like crushing the grapes with their, with their feet and everything. It's like, get you into that whole like culture and vibe and everything. And it's like, well, this movie's not great, but I'm kind of getting into it.
No, and that happened with Vicky Cristina Barcelona too. What is the fucking point of that movie?
I don't know.
There is no point to that movie. It's the fact that Woody Allen wanted to film a Woody Allen film in another part of Europe.
Yep.
And he gets gorgeous actors all together. They all fuck each other.
That's true. That's true.
Then they start filming the movie.
That's true.
Actually, you know what? That's exactly what happens, because when Penelope Cruz shows up, then the movie starts being a movie.
Interesting.
And then that's about it. Like, she's got this, firebrand part in there, and the rest of the movie just collapses under her because she's so much better than everybody else. And the rest of it is just porn, just nature porn or whatever. It's not porn. It's
right.
It's other porn.
All right. Well, what's your actual pick in all this?
My great pick for a vacation, also kind of a subversive vacation movie, is Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh,
good one.
And I love when just things organically come together. So, like, not a road trip movie. We're going to get into a bus and we're going to go across and shenanigans will ensue. This is very organic. It's like the Steve Carell character has to be in his position to come on board. The Paul Dano character has to be in his position. The grandpa, just everybody kind of comes together to make this trip. And you see these personalities start to just take up for each other. And that's the kind of shit that I love, is that, like, okay, yeah, we all hate each other, but at the beginning, but we're gonna do this in solidarity for this one common purpose, in this case to get Abigail Breslin to her beauty pageant or whatever it is. And as we've talked about before, it's got a terrifically satisfying ending, really crazy. The whole thing is crazy. Alan Arkin, I don't think is a spoiler to say that he dies like almost halfway through, I think. And just really quirky and really fun.
I love when a movie holds a card like this movie does, because a lesser movie would show you the joke about the kind of dance Grandpa is teaching her way too early and way too often.
Yeah.
And try and just mine it for repeated sight gags. Whereas this movie doesn't even tell you there's a joke coming there. Like, you don't find yourself going, I wonder what kind of routine he's teaching her. Because it's played so innocently, and she just doesn't want them to see until it's time to surprise them. Nobody really questions it, and then everybody in the family and the audience watching the movie gets to be horrified all at the same time when she starts doing this stripper type routine at this like baby beauty pageant. And again, a lesser movie would play that all wrong and mishandle that, but this movie had the the grace to go, I'm just going to stick that in my back pocket and let it pay off 10 times better by just making it a reveal.
That's one of those endings that's like Tin Cup or Silver Linings Playbook, you know, where the actual victory in the end, the happy ending, isn't what exactly you would expect it to be.
Yep.
And I really do enjoy those type of things.
Yeah, the cool thing about that last scene is that they allow it to be super cringy because it goes on before they join in.
Yeah.
That striptease goes on for a while, and like the judges are too horrified to even say anything to even get up there. Well, and then when they do start to move and say like, we got to put a stop to this, Greg Kinnear and the rest of the family just gets up there and like, you know what, fuck it. This is a perfect example of we're all together. Everything was fucked up at the beginning of this movie, and we're probably still fucked up, but we're all together.
We're a family.
Now. It's great. It's
yeah,
so
yeah.
fun.
No, that's a great pick. I actually wrote that one down too.
Cool.
You couple of bastards.
So, Chris, what is your favorite?
Okay, so my favorite is Before Sunrise.
Oh, good pick.
Nice one.
In fact, you could really kind of say the entire trilogy is...
They're on a trip in each of those.
Yeah, a vacation movie, because Ethan Hawke is just sort of like chilling out in Paris, I think.
They're in France, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They meet he and Julie Delpy meet each other on a train, strike up a conversation in which the whole movie is them talking about all these various topics and everything. And if you're really familiar with Richard Linklater's, you know, a lot of his work, a lot of this type of stuff happens in his movies, real conversational dialogue movies, even Waking Life, which, you know, has got you know, it's a whole, you know, it's got this, I guess, if you want to call it a gimmick of the rotoscoped animation and everything, but it's really just people having conversations and everything. But Before Sunrise is just so engaging in how these two people who are strangers are sitting there just finding this common ground and just having all these, you know, seemingly mundane discussions or whatever, but they all have the from a great point of view and everything, and you realize that this could only be one night that they know each other, and that's it. And it could be they part ways and never see each other again. Of course, they've terrifically shown what has happened over the next two movies over 10. I think Before Sunset came out 10 years 10 years exactly after, and then Before Midnight came out like 9 years or so.
Oh,
after.
really?
It's nearly a decade in between each of those movies.
Richard Linklater really should get more credit for his dialogue, for his scripts. I mean, I was telling Chris earlier how much better I liked Dazed and Confused on the second viewing or the most recent viewing. He's got such a great gift with this stuff. And he should be up there with like the Aaron Sorkins and like even Kevin Smith, the early Kevin Smith.
Especially the Newton Boys.
Yeah.
Man, that script is fire.
You always bring up fucking Newton Boys.
I'm sorry.
You always bring it up.
I'll stop.
That movie sucks.
But his other shit is awesome. You're right. I'm just
the Bad News Bears remake is terrible. Don't watch that.
But yeah, he's got a narrative flair though, and he's got just a way of. You undersell that, man. You get all caught up with the directing portion of it and the cinematography and the music, and dialogue gets kind of just overlooked. And this is where it really shines.
Yeah, and I think they're either equal to or even get even better as these movies go along. Before Sunset's got, I mean, each of these movies takes the situation. They had not seen each other for 10 years in Before Sunset. And they were just sort of catching up with each other. And then by Before Midnight, there's a whole bunch of shit that's happened between these
together
two characters.
then, right?
They're married by the time Before Midnight comes out. But they've been married a long time. And and Before Midnight is just one of those, just overall super excellent movies because yes, it's the third movie in this sort of, you know, walk and talk type of series or whatever, but it has a lot to say about marriage and how people start hating each other and at least the stuff that was real kinetic in their relationship is gone.
Yeah, it's real honest.
Yeah, super honest. I mean, it's the most brutal of those movies, and I do wonder they they end before midnight on a sort of a note where you're like, you're not quite sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows? It might have another before or something. There's only so much time in the day.
before 1 a.m.
brunch.
yeah.
Man, Ethan Hawke has worked with him a ton.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they must have a real good relationship in real life.
I think so. I think is Ethan Hawke from Texas as well?
I think
know that
so.
Linkletter is. But yeah, he was in the aforementioned Newton Boys, and he was also in Boyhood, and he had a cameo in that what was that Fast Food Nation movie?
Oh,
which is another Linkletter kind of misfire.
Oh yeah.
Even though it's got some really I think it's got good stuff in it, but he's in that briefly. But yeah, he does have a pretty good relationship with Linkletter, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I already gave my favorite last round. It was Almost Famous.
Oh.
So you give your favorite. No.
My favorite vacation movie, maybe even by far, is What About Bob?
Oh, that's such a great answer. Vacation from my problems.
I mean, you really get everything because you get like a send-up of, at the time, like the fad therapies. Yes. I think we've done a better job of limiting the fad therapies these days and more focus on integrative therapy and stuff like that. But at the time, this baby steps are like, solve your life.
Yep.
Just,
there's still some of that.
7 easy pieces. I'm sure there is.
Wasn't there a book a year or so ago, like the purpose or the answer or something?
The Secret?
Oh, The Secret. Which is, I think, that's old now, I think.
It's been about 10, 12 years.
It's been around for a while, but but there is always something like that people just jump on and say, I read this and it changed my life forever.
Yeah.
Maybe for you once, and it lasted for a couple of weeks, but
But yeah, I mean, he goes through all of these things. Like he's trying to figure out what fad therapy Dr. Marvin is trying on him each time he says, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
And Bill Murray, this is my favorite Bill Murray, like one of my favorite Bill Murrays ever. Mm-hmm. He's just completely unhinged, but he's got this wonderful humanity. I will never understand why he charms the pants off of the psychiatric staff so quickly, and the time it takes for him to turn, not even get back to the vacation house.
You know what? That's just a function of making it where Richard Dreyfuss is the only asshole in this whole movie.
Yeah.
So everybody else gets it,
and he is a terrific asshole.
Oh, so good.
Oh, he's the best.
The slow burn is real in that movie. And I think it's harder to pull off because you're probably shooting a movie like that over 5 months, and you've got to play, and you're probably not shooting in order, but you've got to play the right level of frustration for every circumstance so that when we watch it linearly, it's building and building and building and building until he's in the nut house.
Well, he should be. He should be frustrated. This is horribly inappropriate.
It is, and no one gets it. We need more movies like this.
Yes.
It's sort of the same model that the Cable Guy would later follow, because you know, in that movie, Matthew Broderick is the one who knows for a fact this guy is awful. But and I guess Jack Black definitely knows. But everywhere else that he takes him and everything, that guy wins over his family and over Leslie Mann and everything. It's just, you always got to isolate the one person who's yelling to the world, this guy isn't right, and everybody else is like, no, man, he's totally cool.
It's got penis.
It's got some of my most quotable lines of it was in the trailer even when Bob is at the front door and he's trying to get him out because Good Morning America is coming up. He's like, the wife says he's gone. He's like, what, you think he's gone?
Yeah.
He's never gone. And he opens the door. He's like, is this some kind of radical?
Yeah.
And then, of course, my favorite I talked about earlier is when he's driving him back from the thing and he just stops the thing and opens the door and says,
yeah.
Oh, it's great.
It's good stuff. That's also a little bit of SNL. Bill Murray sneaks in there when he's doing that lounge singer while they're cleaning up the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Put the jerky back in the refrigerator.
All right. What is an underrated one?
Okay, so I don't know if this really counts, but I do know that there's still a lot of people who haven't seen it. Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh, good pick.
I think you're right. I think it's still somewhat underseen.
There's a lot of people who haven't seen it. There's a lot of people in this who were not famous before this. Paul Rudd was still not really famous, I don't think, but he had done a lot of stuff before this. But Elizabeth Banks, and you have a lot of just like, go-to comedy actors in here. There's Christopher Maloney's in this.
Isn't Michael Ian Black in it?
Michael Ian Black.
Amy
Bradley Cooper is in it.
Bradley Cooper, yeah.
H. John Benjamin plays the voice of a can of like fucking beans or some shit. You have Janine Garofalo, who was well known at that time.
David Hyde
Pierce is in it, and of course it spawned a Netflix series, which I actually enjoyed.
Did you really see it?
Yeah, I enjoyed the Netflix series that came out. It was a prequel, and they were making jokes about how everybody's way older. But it's an origin story for what happens in Hot American Summer, and I enjoyed it. There were some people who didn't like it, of course, but overall, I just love this movie. There's the one character that is Michael Showalter plays. He's basically the main character in this. He's in love with this one. The actress is named Marguerite Moreau, and like they have this scene at the beginning where she talks to him, and apparently it was the first time they talked to each other in like the entire summer or whatever. And she walks away, and he goes, "I want you inside me." And she goes, "What?" She's like, "Have a good time," whatever. Lines like that are just great. And Paul Rudd is such a funny ass fucking dickhead in this movie. He is so funny. Like he's the one who's actually going out with the Marguerite Moreau character, and then like there's a point halfway where he starts making out with Elizabeth Banks, and there's a point where they're like making out, and he like pulls away from her. He's like, "Your breath tastes like a burger. I'm done with this," or whatever. and just like real truthful moments in this, because it seems like the Showalter character and Marguerite Moreau are like sort of destined to be this couple, and it really like just does a great thing by the end of this. But really funny movie, and I would recommend it.
Good pick. All right, so I was going to go with Vacation by Ed Helms here as underrated, and I will admit I am all in. If you two and you listeners watch this movie and do not like it, I have made peace with that. I watched most of this movie again yesterday because it was on, and it just always makes me laugh. And I think part of it is the humor's just quirky. Like one of Chris Hemsworth's running gags is that all of his conservative Texan type isms have to do with faucets. So like he's calling Rusty gullible. He's like, "That's old Rusty. He buy water from a faucet." And then later on, he says some other things like, "Even a stone faucet lets out a drip or two." And you see like Ed Helms go, "What is with all the faucets?" I think it's really funny. I think it's funnier than its reputation or its reviews. I think it's underrated. But for the answer, I found a better one.
Okay.
And it's a movie starring Steve Zahn called A Perfect Getaway.
Ooh,
yes. Nice.
Have you seen this movie?
Oh, yeah.
This is a movie I want to say very little about.
Yep.
This movie does one thing so well, it makes the whole movie great.
Yep.
And it's about a couple on vacation in Hawaii on a hike.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And I don't think you will feel like you wasted your hour and a half when you're done with this movie. It's not long. And it's just, it's so clever. I'm surprised it hadn't been done before.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it has in some obscure French black and white movie from the
sure it has
30s.
Yeah.
But it's just like a typical tense vacation thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably pretty average in that regard. But as a whole, I don't think it's average at all. I think it's really, really smart. And I think it's way underseen and way underrated. You two are the only two people I've ever even talked to that have seen it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Well, some of what you're saying here, and this goes for Vacation too, is a lot of times it's how you come upon it. You run across it. You have like A Perfect Getaway. I was just waiting for movies to get out one night at the theater, and I just strung that thing up. It was really short, so I was like, you know what? While these movies are, waiting to get out. I'll just watch this and everything. And then it was a big surprise to me. Wasn't expecting anything from it. Same thing goes for something like Vacation. You probably weren't expecting anything out of that. It's amazing how much a movie can grow on you when you just kind of have no idea what you're getting into, and then suddenly something's funny, and then something's funny again. And you're like, oh,
I was thinking about this the other day. If it's a movie I haven't seen and it's got people I like in it, I have a very low tolerance or high tolerance for poor quality. I will sit and watch like that. There's this movie called Blackway with Anthony Hopkins and the girl from the Bourne movies who plays Nikki, and it's not good. I watched the whole goddamn thing because I like the people in it and I didn't know what was going to happen. But when I go to the theater and I plunk down money and I've seen the trailer and I have certain expectations, my tolerance, goes way down for crap. And so you may be right, because it's kind of that Horrible Bosses 2 thing happening with Vacation. Like, you might watch Vacation and go, well, it's certainly not a 26% on Rotten Tomatoes bad, but I don't see why Jeremy likes it so much. That's probably what's going to happen. And I just happened to catch it on the right day, and I was already a big Ed Helms fan. I don't know.
So it's Julia Stiles was in that?
Julia Stiles.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, because I was like, I think that's Julia Stiles, but Nikki, I just couldn't think of the character name.
And I think it's even got Ray Liotta in it. It's like a lot of times movies get made on a smaller budget. They'll have a few big actors, but for one reason or another, they never release wide, or they never get distribution, and whoever invested in the film wants to get whatever money they can back, and so this movie ends up on HBO for 2 months, or find in a DVD bin or what have you. And The Perfect Getaway was exactly like that. It came on TV. I didn't even know it existed.
So, and I just looked this movie up. Daniel Alfredson, the guy who did the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy, did that movie.
Well, then that kind of explains why there's some cleverness there.
Yeah, it obviously. Again, we don't look at the IMDb ratings to tell us what we like or whatever. It's got a 5.2 on the IMDb.
So underrated would be a good category.
Absolutely.
All right, well, give us yours, Barrett.
Well, this one's also not very well liked. I think it's definitely underrated. And it's The Heartbreak Kid. It's the Ben Stiller version of this.
There was another version?
Yeah, no, there was one before.
I can't remember when it came out.
It starred Dean Martin. In 1961.
No, I think it was something like that. Now, this was actually the Farrelly brothers. We were just talking about how they've gone downhill after There's Something About Mary. And this is not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I had similarly low expectations. Came on cable probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was just watching. And I was like, this is a lot more fun than I realized it was. Part of it is that it's got an R rating. Part of it is that there's fun humor in this, and there's raunchy humor without it being typical Farrelly Brothers gross-out humor, aside from one obvious peeing on a jellyfish wound thing. But even that's pretty hilarious because it's revealed that this woman has this odd feature. Anyway, what I was saying earlier is I like a lot of Ben Stiller movies, even though I don't really like Ben Stiller in those movies. And Ben Stiller as kind of the straight guy and like the guy who doesn't explain himself, and that gets him into trouble later on. Like, that's the worst part of this movie. But everything else is really, really fun. And primarily Malin Ackerman as the girl that he just got married to, and they're on their honeymoon, is fearless in this role.
Yeah, she is.
It's hilarious, man. I mean,
I'll tell you also, the thing Heartbreak Kid that I came out of was the first experience I had with Danny McBride.
Oh, yeah.
And he was funny as fuck in that movie.
Yeah, he was.
Isn't Michelle Monaghan in this too?
She is.
Yep.
That's the girl he falls for, or thinks he falls for.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole thing is just a stupid misunderstanding that he meets Michelle Monaghan and on his honeymoon, and he doesn't tell her that he's married.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the point where it would be weird if he tells her that he's married.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, poor Malin Ackerman has got this horrible sunburn, like she's been laid up. Just everything is terrible has happened to this woman, and he's off like, I don't think I like this woman because she sings to the car radio the whole way down.
Well, the premise is that they get married, everything's perfect, and then suddenly he starts noticing everything that's wrong with her.
Yeah.
Kind of like Cinemasins got married to somebody.
Yeah. Well, that's just annoying in the car.
Yeah.
And she should have the self-awareness to realize that. Like, at some point, you got to give it a rest.
It is pretty funny. And Ben Stiller's reactions are really funny because they start off, it's like every road trip movie where it's like, I got a pocket full of sunshine, or whatever it is. And then like the next song comes on, she's singing along. Then like cut to 3 hours later, she's still singing along. And he's like, how do you know the lyrics to all these songs? But it's a lot of fun. Jerry Stiller's in it. He's pretty funny. He's always reliably funny. Carlos Mencia's pretty funny in this. It's kind of like a comparison to Forgetting Sarah Marshall, in that it's kind of an exotic location. You get to interact with the staff and everything. It's not as good as Forgetting Sarah Marshall, but it's worth a look.
Good call.
The original was in 1972 with Charles Grodin and Sybil Shepherd. And it was directed by Elaine May, who was Mike Nichols, I think married to Mike Nichols and wrote a bunch of Mike Nichols screenplays. And then eventually Ishtar was she's probably...
I almost went Ishtar on my underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Ishtar is one of these movies, it's like the reverse La La Land. It got so much panning that people decided it was worthless, and there's some gold in there, man. Those two have really good timing. They're fucking idiots. Just the first 15 minutes of them trying to write a song is worth watching the whole movie for, even before they get the mistaken identity in the CIA. I love me some Ishtar.
Yeah.
All right, so those
are our recommendations for vacation movies, baby.
Yeah.
Now watch them all and come back and report.
That's right.
Because even though you're on vacation, you have homework.
Observe and report.
I'm sure that'll come up later on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of our picks. We did good picks.
Mm-hmm.
What I like is that it's like that episode of Seinfeld where Elaine only likes the Vincent picks at the video store, and she doesn't want to get it. We've got plenty of Gene picks available. Oh, Gene's trash. I'm Gene. People will, people who think their taste is more like yours, might be more interested in checking out your recommendations than mine, and so on and so forth. I just think it's fun. It's fun. We're having fun.
Nice. Yeah. We're having fun.
We are having a good time.
We're just talking here.
We're touching. We are having a good time.
God put our mouths on our heads for a reason.
All right. You want to do some cues?
Let's do some cues.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
I rewatched A Few Good Men recently, whose tournament loss shall be for eternally mourned. I agree. And notice how Lieutenant Caffey thinks that he thinks better with his bat, which got me thinking, what do you think are the best character quirks in terms of trinkets or fidgeting? So immediately, my mind jumped to what I think is probably just a tiny little, I don't know if Clooney came up with it or if Soderbergh told him to do it, but it's Jack's lighter and Out of Sight. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't even really use it for anything except for fidgeting. And I always found that very cool, because what's not cool about popping a Zippo lighter and then just
Well, and you can also imagine there's a backstory or a reason, like Butch's watch in Pulp Fiction. Maybe it's a really important lighter to him or something. That's a great answer.
Thank
you. When I was in college and doing stage plays like the Arsenic and Old Lace and the whatnot, they taught us indefinite business. That was what they called it. Was that whenever you're on stage, if you don't have lines, you should have something for your hands to be doing, for your character to be doing, that something that can recur, or whether it's chewing on a pen or flicking open a lighter and closing it, and it creates this added realism almost subconsciously for the viewer when you've got good indefinite business. And that's one of the better examples I've seen.
Yeah, it's his thing.
Yeah, it's his thing.
That's a funny thing, too, is when Paul Thomas Anderson was doing Hard 8 and Gwyneth Paltrow wanted to do a lot of things with her hands and everything, he wouldn't let her do it.
Oh, yeah?
Interesting.
He said that's an actor's crutch, and I'm not going to let you do that shit.
Oh, so I was taught a crutch.
You were...
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's different philosophies, and I'm sure Paul Thomas Anderson just gets tired of it, just like I got tired of seeing people eating apples and shit like that in movies.
Yeah.
It was just,
or you got tired of watching Clooney's head bob all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, there's always these things that you notice in movies, and you're like, could you just do it without that, please? Please, I can't not notice this.
That's interesting. Mine is not as recurring. But I loved it as such a little touch so much that I'm going to use it, and that's Emily Blunt's fake cigarette in Looper. Because she clearly used to be a smoker, and for whatever reason is not anymore. I like to believe that she just had to quit because she's raising this child now who's really her daughter but doesn't believe she's her daughter. But there's that early scene when we get to her farm where she's like, I think she's sitting out on the front porch. Maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
And she's not fucking around with this fake cigarette. Like, she brings it up to her mouth really slow, brings out a fake lighter. The drag she pretends to take and blow out is slow and easy. Just like, oh, God, I would kill for a cigarette right now if I could. And I always found that such a neat little touch because, again, a lesser movie would show a patch or give us some other way to let us know she used to be a smoker, but she gave it up. And I just liked... Everybody I know who smoked and then gave it up has always kind of missed it, like Chandler on Friends. We were talking about that earlier. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel like she misses it, and there's a nostalgic warmth in this act for her of pretending to smoke a cigarette.
Well, we could do a whole litany of answers to this about cigarettes, which are, of course, getting less and less prevalent in movies. So much so they have to be on the MPAA thing, the scenes of smoking. But like Vincent Vega and like half of Travolta's characters, even though he doesn't smoke in real life, are smoking cigarettes, and that's kind of their thing. You go through this in Pulp Fiction, he's going through the whole thing of like rolling it up and everything, and that's his indefinite business.
Yeah.
And it's very, very cool to see Bruce Willis in Die Hard and things like that, where that's part of the character is this action of smoking.
Yeah. I wrote down a few, but I'm going to go with Christian Bale as Michael Burry in The Big Short, and, his drumsticks.
Oh.
He's constantly, of course, listening to music, but he's always like tapping those drumsticks on his desk and everything. Really just sort of trying to figure this problem out that's going on in the movie, this whole, like, you know, this housing crisis. And just every time you see him, he's just in there doing that. Now, I guess a lot of people do that. That's a normal thing. People listen to music, or they go and play music or whatever to sort of think about other things. Like I think that's like that's one huge plot point of Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, the old Gary Cooper one, not the Adam Sandler one, but there's a whole court case where he's like I just get on my guitar to play and think. That's what my thing is. And and he goes through around the courtroom like, this is what your thing is. I've noticed you do this ever since you came in, you know, that type of thing. But yeah, music seems to be a big thing. I wrote down a couple others. They're not prevalent. I mean, they're like all the way through the movie, but John Malkovich and his Oreos and Rounders, which is the big, huge tell that he's got
which nobody has ever noticed before.
Nobody's noticed. But that's a big, huge thing in that movie and everything. Yeah. But it's not as, you know, it's not like the lighter or anything like that. But that's the one. That's the big one for me, was the Christian Bale one. That's a good one.
I liked the other one that I thought about was Rocky and his ball. The ball that he keeps like, you know, bouncing all the way through. Oh, yeah. And like he's bouncing it off of the walls and all that stuff and off the ground. And it gives him kind of just like a thing rather than just walking around the streets of Philadelphia. He's got like a thing, you know, and that's kind of cool.
I used to have this blue stress ball about 8 years ago when I worked at the web design firm before all this stuff. And I was always doing that. I'd bring it to meetings. I'd throw it off the walls. I'd throw it off my cubicle. And one of my coworkers, little kids, came in one day and started playing with me with the ball. And then later referred to the ball as the Jer ball. And then all my coworkers called me Jer ball for the rest of my employment there. To the point where I lunched with them like 2 months ago. They all called me Jer ball.
Nice.
Hey, Jer ball. How's it going?
So you became...
There you go.
You became Coco the monkey.
I basically did, yeah. Kruger will never allow two Cocos.
T-bones. Love that T-bone. By the way, have you guys familiar with Fidget Spinners? That was in one of the Sin scripts.
Yeah, the Split. That's
now I'm addicted to it. Once you have it in your hand and you can start it like flick, and it's very like tactilely satisfying.
I got one because I read. When I went to Florida, I got one because I read that they're good for people with anxiety. Give yourself something to do. And only when I got back did I realize the internet has decided that they're the butt of all jokes. And like it's a pet rock.
Well, yeah, but it's an annoying pet rock to teachers apparently, because my son has one and all of the kids in his class have them, and the teachers can't outlaw them but it's got to be, they're just falling all over the place. They're made of metal. They're spinning. It's this low-level hum like all the way through.
What I really like about it is when you hold it level, vertical or horizontal, and get it going really fast, you can feel the resistance as you start to kind of turn your hand clockwise. The centrifugal resistance or what have you. It's kind of fascinating.
I just heard about these literally in the last 2 days. I had no idea.
It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. I'll bring mine next time we can spin.
Let's fidget. Yeah. All right. If you could have one prop from any movie to display in your home, what would you choose? Now, this is interesting because obviously there are a bazillion of these.
There are.
And we recently had the question of what article of clothing would you like, but what is a prop that you would
Captain Picard's chair.
Oh, yeah. Shit, that's a good one.
From the Enterprise D.
Oh, man.
It would sit in my office, and I would sit in it.
Yeah, of course.
And I would say things like, make it so, and number one, and damn it, Wesley, things like that. And the line must be drawn here, this far, and no further. Jean-Luc, blow up the damn ship. Sorry, I just went into first contact.
Well, Jeremy took everybody's answer in this room. Go on to the next question. No, I'm just kidding.
You've got your furniture. I'm going to have the desk from The Godfather.
Oh, that's good.
Because I want my shit to be functional. I'm going to work at that desk. I'm going to probably like do the dramatic thing where I wipe everything off of it and have sex with somebody on it.
There you go. Probably your wife, maybe?
Yeah, definitely my wife.
Yeah.
There's like an 80% chance it's my wife.
Right.
But like, no, I think that'd be awesome. First of all, I have seen it with my own two eyeballs.
Oh, yeah?
At Francis Ford Coppola's Vineyard in Napa.
Oh, wow.
And it is as gorgeous as you remember from the movie. And having that shit in my office would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah. I'm going to have the idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh,
nice.
Excellent.
It's an ugly little thing.
It really
but
is.
Man, oh man, would it be great to just have as a sort of centerpiece in your room
that
somewhere.
would be a good conversation starter.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you imagine how did you get your hands on this idol? Well,
that's a whole other movie.
That's a whole thing. Yeah, that'd be a fun little thing to have hanging out.
We have a nice little office setup between Picard's chair, the Godfather desk, and the idol that you put on the desk.
We should totally make this movie that everybody's challenging us to make.
Oh yeah,
because we can't make movies. To have the Godfather desk, the Picard chair, and the Raiders of the Lost Ark idol all in one scene.
I dig.
And can I say, make it so somewhere in the movie?
Absolutely.
Hey, by the way, all Paramount properties.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. We're brand loyal. I guess. Oh, all right. Let's get deep. What movie is about something deeper than it appears to be, such as how Whiplash isn't just about drums, but perfectionism, or how The Social Network is about the fragility of friendship? I don't know about the Social Network analogy. I do believe, obviously, Whiplash is not just about drumming. But what are some movies that have deeper meanings than you would think?
Well, there is a recent movie that has just come out that I'm pretty sure that you guys haven't seen, but it's called Colossal.
Oh, yeah.
And
Anne Hathaway, right?
Anne Hathaway. And essentially the gist of it when you watch the trailer is that you find out that there's this monster ravaging Korea and that she somehow is responsible for this monster that's ravaging Korea. And so the movie, and I don't want to get like I listened to Aaron on his Sift Pop podcast about this movie, and I couldn't have said it much better than what he was talking about. And I don't want to get too much into it because for people who really want to see this at some point, it's kind of a good surprise type movie. It's not like I'm not giving away that there's a surprise or a twist.
No, obviously I think it's in the trailer.
It's just a very but like it's got her and Jason Sudeikis, and Jason Sudeikis have never seen like this before.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he like the bar owner or something?
Yeah,
like
he's
that?
a bar owner, and she basically lives in New York, and her boyfriend kicks her out of the apartment because she drinks all the time. She's always out. He never sees her, so on and so forth. So she goes back to her hometown, runs into like old friend Jason Sudeikis and everything. But the whole movie in of itself, you could say is a big sort of allegory for alcoholism. So there's a lot of different things in there that if you watch the movie under sort of a metaphorical with metaphorical glasses on and everything, you notice that this isn't just about some weird thing about a girl and her monster that she's controlling in South Korea. It's got a lot more to it, and all the actions mean more than that.
It looks really impressive.
Now, I wasn't as big of a fan as Aaron was of this movie. I did like it. I thought it was good, and especially listening to him talk about it and everything. I was like, maybe over a couple more viewings of this, I'll be all on board of Colossal. I feel like it goes too. There's some character changes in the movie that are like too quick for me. Mm-hmm. Like it didn't seem realistic to me at all. But overall, it was a good time. So
I really want to see it.
Yeah.
I got one that I'm not totally sure that I know what it's about. I kind of want to ask you guys. But I know that Groundhog Day is about something incredibly deep. Mm-hmm. I've read a lot of stuff about Groundhog Day that it's like this, almost like a Zen search for perfectionism or that kind of thing, or your highest self. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly if that's the case, but it's definitely more than just this guy reliving a day over and over again. He has to get to a certain point. Some of it is selfish, and some of it is for the good of the town. It's definitely to make him a better person, though. And that certainly wasn't communicated by the trailer or by the marketing of Groundhog Day when it came out. It was Bill Murray being crazy and he can't die and he's in Punxsutawney.
Don't drive angry.
Exactly. Side of your eye. Side of your eye. Mm-hmm. But the more that you watch it, matter of fact, I think the first couple of times that I watched this, it was a lot sadder than I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. There was some funny moments in there and everything, but like that whole montage of him committing suicide over and over and over again is like, all right. So what do you guys think that, what is it?
I think this is a unique case because my gut reaction is we may be overanalyzing.
Uh-huh.
But I do know that I've read that he and Harold Ramis had wildly different ideas about what this movie should be and its tone, and that the movie we ended up with was somewhere in between.
Yeah,
there too. Like one was going to be much more madcap, and one was going to be a much more. So I think there was at least discussion about something very meditative and deep, and so for that reason, I think this is a unique case. That I think they are trying to say something. And it does get dark. Actually, it's harder for me to watch the trying to save the old man. And keep that guy from dying, because at that point he's already turned a corner, at least to wanting to be a good person, but he still can't.
And he's
succeed.
He's breaking down. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of deep stuff going on here. Some of it we might just be inferring, but they clearly thought about it while they were making it.
Well, you also have in a sort of a way like. Yes, he has basically infinite days to make this one day perfect or whatever, but it's almost like, what if this were your last day? Live life to the fullest, that type of message I always got from it too, because essentially he had been wasting his life. If he doesn't get the snowstorm, he's going to continue being this horrible person and everything, and nothing's ever going to change. But as he goes through this over and over and over again, he learns like, oh, okay, there are more to things than just, me getting my celebrity status things.
Yeah, and I like the fact that none of this shit is explained. Why does this happen to him? Why does it happen now?
Yeah.
Why does it happen in this place?
That is a great thing.
Yeah.
And it does, even the script gets pretty meditative, because there's that scene where he's talking to Andy McDowell in the cafe explaining what's going on, and he's like, I'm not the God, I'm a God. Maybe the real God isn't a God. He's just been around so long, he's seen everything.
Yeah.
That you don't write something like that into your script if you're not trying to needle the brain a little bit, I think, into thinking deeper.
Yeah, usually these high concept, you're right, usually these high concept movies have some sort of inciting act, like in Liar Liar, it's the kid blowing out candles and making a wish,
right?
And and there's some here. It's really there's zero explanation.
There's no architect to come and
right,
explain.
Exactly. There's nobody that's come in and say, here's the magical thing or whatever. I do like that about the movie.
Yeah. There's no Chevy Chase.
That's
like
right.
The Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah. I was thinking Christopher Walken and Click.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same exact character.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What are we talking about?
Oh,
I'm going with South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because if there's one great regret I have for The Simpsons, it's that when they made a movie, which I find to be pretty funny, they didn't try and do anything deeper with it.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the South Park guys did.
Mm-hmm.
And when that movie came out and I first watched it, I didn't pay any attention to that. I was just enjoying these characters with filthy language that wasn't getting censored and a longer story that seemed like it fit in this universe. But they were going after censorship hard. They wrote the script to tackle a huge issue and yet still try and make an entertaining surface movie as well. And, you know, I kind of wish The Simpsons could have done something like that with their movie. It just didn't elevate at all.
Well, if they had made it when they wanted to make it, which was back in the third, fourth season or whatever, but they kept, because the making a season of those was so grueling.
Yeah.
They couldn't ever. That was the reason why it took so long. And by the time it came out, which was 2006 or 2007, one of those, the series itself had long passed its real heyday.
Yeah.
And so all the writers that are on that, they don't have any new material to mine.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have anything really to go. And that's why that movie's so strange at times. But yeah, the Simpsons movie was better than I think I was expecting at that point, but it still was a far cry from what it would have been if it had come out in 93, 94.
You're probably right.
Okay, what city or general location in real life do you think is the most romanticized in movies? I like this question a lot.
Yeah, go ahead.
San Francisco, hands fucking down.
All right, why?
Because you get shots of the bay and the bridge and the buildings, and they don't ever get close enough to show you how fucking dirty that city is. I was there one time with Chris 2 years ago.
Yeah.
There is a cake of dust and grime on everything. Buildings, sidewalks, curbs, and there's literally a homeless person every 5 feet.
That's true.
And it smells bad. And we walked a lot in that city.
Of places.
We walked a lot, and it's that way everywhere. I was floored.
That's interesting.
I could not believe, because there have been countless movies and TV shows that just romanticize that goddamn Golden Gate Bridge and the hilly nature of the city and the unique architecture, and it's grimy as hell. You will want a shower every hour.
That is hilarious. I did not get that impression. I see what you're saying about the dirtiness and the homeless population for sure. But I saw something just about as glamorous as that. And I walked around a decent amount, went to Haight-Ashbury, went to the wharf and all that stuff, and up around the big twisty road and all that stuff. And I was super charmed by that city.
I was not.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. I have both of your perspectives of San Francisco because I found a lot of things beautiful about the city, but all at the same time, there's this just grimy, sort of film over this.
I'm telling you,
over this city.
Now we also drove out to the Redwoods. There's none of that grime there, and that's probably a top 10 experience of my life.
That was pretty awesome.
So, it wasn't all bad. And we were staying and walking downtown. There were plenty of neighborhoods we didn't get to see. But I remember being shocked. I remember telling you when we were there, this is the dirtiest city I've ever been in. Dirtier than New York City.
Yeah. I'm going to say that Prague is the most romanticized city.
Interesting.
Now, typically,
Don't you mean Prague?
I do mean Prague.
Pragu.
I need a recording. I need a recording of Chris saying Prague. It's hilarious. No, it's usually, of course, it's in spy movies. There's in almost every spy movie, Bond, Mission Impossible, they go to Prague.
Yeah.
I always find a way. And it's always an opera house. And it's like, look at this opera house. Look at all of our statues and art and everything like that. I think Prague gets a great deal of romanticism. It's almost like, you may be saying this later, but Paris kind of gets this kind of, has always long gotten this treatment and probably a more accurate answer. But Prague recently, I feel like, that's always that go-to European city to go to.
Yeah, I get you. I feel you.
In that Kicking and Screaming movie I was talking about last week, there's the Olivia Diabo character moves to Prague after graduation, and the protagonist is like, she's like, you can't talk negatively about Prague. You've never been to Prague. He's like, oh, I've been to Prague. I mean, I haven't been to Prague, been to Prague. I'm going to say as much love as we've heaped on this city, rightfully so, but Boston is super romanticized in movies, and especially with a certain subset of filmmakers like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg, all these guys. What you see there, and I've been to Boston a few times. Have you guys been to Boston? You've been to Boston.
Yep.
It is a really, really cool city. It's a very walkable city.
Not a very drivable city.
No, definitely not a drivable city.
Because they just never fixed the roadways once cars became a thing.
Well, it's that, and then you've got the BART or whatever going through the public transit going right down the middle of the street, so you can't turn at all. But the real like money shots of Boston, like Fenway's within sight distance of everything, like Fisherman's Wharf is right there. Not Fisherman's Wharf. The Boston Harbor is right there in all shots.
I think you've done 2 San Francisco things on this Boston.
What was the other one?
BART.
BART is the
Bay
San
Area.
Francisco.
Yeah,
yes.
Bay Area.
I was thinking Boston area. God damn. But I mean, it seems like everything is just that Boston Commons is within everything. You know, in Good Will Hunting, I believe Robin Williams takes Matt Damon's character. He takes him to Boston Commons, but he's supposed to be way the fuck down in South Boston. Mm-hmm. So that's a long ass trip to get up to that duck pond. Yeah. I've been to that duck pond. It's beautiful. But anyway, I don't know. It's a little too romanticized, both in the beautiful way and in the gritty, grimy way, and the Southies and all that stuff, and the neighborhoods and Gone Baby Gone. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's my answer.
No, that was a good one.
All right, let's do one more.
Let's do another.
Okay. What are good examples of the best and worst movie featuring a musician in which they had at least some creative input? Interesting examples they gave. This listener says David Bowie in Labyrinth and Bob Dylan in Masked and Anonymous. Bob Dylan either helped co-write that movie or helped co-direct that movie.
Yeah, I think he may have co-written it. I'm not
under a pseudonym, I think, too. So what I was going to say today is what a lot of people may not agree with me, but Prince in Purple Rain is, I think, a great example, because Purple Rain is not a great movie, but the fact that he made this his own and his own story and everything just makes me smile every single time. My answer for today, so we just found out today that Chris Cornell died. Mm-hmm. So Chris Cornell was in the movie Singles, a movie that I've gone on record as not liking very much. Mm-hmm. But apparently he had a lot. I do love the soundtrack. Yep. And apparently he had a lot of influence on that. In fact, Cameron Crowe was talking about putting Chris Cornell in the lead in the the
Matt Dillon.
No, not Matt Dillon. The
Campbell Scott?
The Campbell Scott role.
Oh, wow.
Which would have been very, very interesting, either him or the Matt Dillon role. But he didn't. He had stuff to do. He was going on tour or whatever. What they did was Matt Dillon's band, Citizen Dick, recorded or had like a tape, like a prop tape that the bassist for Pearl Jam typed up and all that stuff. And it had a listing of joke songs on there. One of the joke songs was called Spoon Man.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris Cornell went in and recorded all of those songs. Mm-hmm. And one of those songs was called Seasons, which ended up on the soundtrack. Yeah. That he recorded on this tape, and he gave the tape back to Cameron Crowe. So Chris Cornell was very integral in not only, being kind of a pillar of the scene in Seattle at the time, but also an influence in one of the best soundtracks of all time in that movie. So that's one that I want to make.
Very good.
It's funny too. He shows up a couple of times in the movie, and the funniest part one is when Matt Dillon wires Bridget Fonda's car up with that insane stereo system that's in her car, and he starts playing. He starts putting the volume up and everything. But you see Chris Cornell, he's just like sitting there, just headbang into it and everything. Of course, it ends up with her car windows getting smashed out and everything. Okay, so by the way, Masked and Anonymous was Bob Dylan under the pseudonym of Sergei Petrov.
Oh, there you go.
And it was directed by Larry Charles.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I have a best and worst here. Are we doing our best first?
I didn't do the worst, but I'll give you my worst real quick. Justin Timberlake in In Time. And that's all that needs to be said about that.
That's a good one. Although, you know what? That's an interesting case. Do we consider him a musician who is acting? in that movie?
I think, well, I mean, okay. So they mentioned that David Bowie in Labyrinth as their example. Mm-hmm. David Bowie's also acting in there. Yes, he's got some musical numbers, but he's more of an actor than he is a musician.
But, it's an interesting facet to this question because I think I consider Timberlake as much an actor as I do a musician these days. It's kind of strange, and that's a movie where it's not like they just stuck him in as a stunt casting type of thing. They figured he really could do this job, and I think he did. The movie's terrible. It's not much anybody could have done with it.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty bad, especially after he had done Alpha Dog and Social Network before then. But
yeah, my best is, I've mentioned this before, this movie before, but Frank Sinatra and the Man with a Golden Arm.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's something that you didn't see back in the 1950s, discussing heroin addiction. Yeah. And of course they couldn't say heroin or anything that he was actually doing, but you saw him tying up his arm, and that's where it went. And okay. And he plays it really well. But Frank Sinatra, and that's another one, by the way, about this question. Do you really consider him just a musician who's trying to act in this movie, or is he really an actor by this point?
If you take those two considerations, by the 1950s, Frank Sinatra obviously much, much more famous as a musician than he is as an actor, even though he was in Guys and Dolls at that point.
Yep.
And some other things, Manchurian Candidate, I don't know if that came way after.
Later.
Oceans.
And Oceans. But Justin Timberlake certainly was known more as a musician, even at that point.
Yeah.
So,
I think the question is basically saying, them as a musician. What was a high acting point for them or whatever. So yeah, Frank Sinatra in that movie. I mean, if you want to see like some like really like, I mean, it makes you feel dirty watching a movie in the 50s that deals with this type of stuff. I think it's really well done. My worst. Now I'm going to mention this because I'm pretty sure neither of us in this room has seen Glitter or from Justin. You seen it?
Oh yeah.
Or from Justin to Kelly?
I have seen that too.
Oh my God. So you guys have seen both. I haven't. I wanted to mention those.
I've even seen Crossroads, by the way.
Oh shit.
On my list.
I'm going to mention what I think is worst here in a minute, but Glitter, by the way, has a 2.2 IMDb rating.
I'm surprised it's that high.
It came out a week after 9/11.
Oh Jesus. Wow.
The thing about From Justin to Kelly, I remember From Justin to Kelly because nobody, even me, watched that movie to sneak preview it to make sure the print went through fine and all that. Nobody did that. I worked the next day, Friday night, and we ran the 7:00 show, and somebody came out and said that there was that the movie went out of frame. And I was like, shit, okay. And I was like, why didn't anybody say anything about it before then? And then I looked back at the ticket sales for that day, had 0 all day. So basically it was running and it would go out of frame and nobody was there to care.
That's hilarious.
It's not, out of those two, From Justin to Kelly is definitely better than Glitter.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. The one that I'm going to mention that I have seen, I'm going to say Rob Zombie directing Halloween.
Nice. Oh. Excellent pick.
That's and obviously you can say that for a lot of the movies he's directed, but Halloween definitely is the one that I think, as far as musicians being involved, he shouldn't have been involved with.
Yep.
For the one that impressed me, I'm going to butcher his name, Steve Van Zandt from The Sopranos.
Oh, good pick.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I only knew as a member of Bruce Springsteen's
the
E Street Band. Yeah. No, it's shocking that he did this so beautifully.
Yeah, and he's authentic.
Yeah.
And I remember going, that guy is in Bruce Springsteen's band and playing off scenes with these heavyweights. And then the one that impressed me the least, I'm so happy with this answer, Mick Jagger and Free Jack.
Oh.
Because he's basically playing Mick Jagger in Free Jack. And he's a bad guy, and he has that pout and those lips, and there are plenty of things about that movie that will pull you out of it, but he is the biggest.
That's a good one.
You forgot he was in. You forgot all about Free Jack.
Man,
didn't you?
there was a period of Mick Jagger when he did "Dancing in the Street" with David Bowie. He did that song with Michael Jackson that was awful. He just had this run of anything that wasn't Stones related was just hideous, and that's one of them.
Yeah, that was a weird, like Anthony Hopkins is in there. And, Rene Russo. And was it, I'm just now looking up this thing. Jonathan Banks is in that movie.
Yeah, and Emilio Estevez.
Yeah, Emilio Estevez, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not good. I wouldn't waste your time. It's one of those high concept, terrible movies.
Yeah. Honorable mention for Tina Turner and Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, that was one that I was thinking of, and I was like, do I really consider that bad or good, or what do I really?
I'd say that's bad.
What would I consider it really? I mean, I think she does what she can with it or whatever. She is kind of bad. I mean, that movie's bad.
The movie's awful.
Okay, well, that'll do it for this week. Keep on going to SoundCloud and giving us your thoughts.
Yeah, bring it. We're kind of more freeform these days, but let us know what you think. Let us know if you plan on watching any of these recommendations. If you have watched any of them, let us know what you think. We've gone through some comedies and we've gone through vacation movies, and next week will be fantastic. Trust me.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely. All right, well, that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Sher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit Cinemasins.com.
All right. Anything else about war movies?
Fuck them.
Yeah.
Do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? Well,
is it
no, I think it's Bijou Phillips.
Oh, is it Bijou Phillips?
I think so. Because that's the opening, and it's in the park, and she's got somebody's hand down her pants.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
But then Claudia Schiffer is in the movie.
Black and White. The movie.
Robert Downey Jr., Mike Tyson.
Oh,
Elijah Wood.
That was a big story, too, because Tyson didn't know that Downey was going to go and hit on him.
Yeah.
And so, like, he really played that up, like fearlessly, basically went up and started hitting on Mike Tyson for the movie.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think Tyson did anything, though. I think
he gets pretty angry.
But he does get angry.
And I think he starts calling him a bunch of gay slurs.
Yes.
Which is probably what the real Mike Tyson in those moments.
Probably.
James Toback has this reputation for a certain style of filmmaking that just to me feels lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just because he does so much improv.
Yeah.
And I think he explains it away with more authentic performances and moments and shit like that. But it's really just a director who didn't feel like preparing, in my mind.
I don't remember too much about that movie other than that scene. And then Ben Stiller is like a detective or something like that. And at the very end, he's calling this guy a very dangerous person. He calls him up. I've always loved this in movies, though, where somebody's just audacious in their threats and like don't give a fuck or whatever. And Ben Stiller is talking to this dude on the phone that can kill him if he wants to. I think he's like it's basically to the point of saying he's like, I got the evidence and you're gonna go down, asshole. You heard me right, motherfucker. And all of a sudden Ben Stiller talking over the this YouTube channel is called Joe Pantoliano Vault. Has 123 subscribers.
You know what I like? I like Ben Stiller movies.
Yeah.
Even though I don't really like Ben Stiller all that much.
I noticed you snuck a Heartbreak Kid reference into today's show.
That's a fun movie. It's like Along Came Polly. Like, I really like that movie aside from Ben Stiller.
What's weird is that Heartbreak Kid one kills me because every time I end up watching part of it, I have forgotten how fucking naked that girl gets in that honeymoon
That's
sex
Malin Ackerman.
scene. Yeah. And clearly not afraid to take off her clothes for a role, but you don't expect that. It doesn't feel like it's that R-rated until that scene, and then it just gets very R-rated very quickly.
That's a funny sex scene, though.
Yes, it is. Because she doesn't know normal positions.
Yeah.
Like,
and she says something like,
pile drive me.
Yeah, you want to pile drive me?
Helicopter me, and I'll do this.
I do also like the idea, too, by the end of it, she's like, because he keeps saying the flip switched and everything, And then she goes, I don't know what happened. After we got married, your switch flipped or whatever. And it's like him, like maybe from her perspective, he's different,
Boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. When I saw Kindergarten Cop, I used to quote that line all the time, much to my mother's chagrin.
I always did the Beavis and Butthead thing where they're getting sex ed from the like militaristic teacher.
Oh my God!
You remember this?
So funny.
We're going to be talking about the penis.
You know what's
funny about the vagina?
I'll tell you what's so funny about that is not only the fact that they can't laugh and that he's saying these words for that very reason, but it feels like he's standing at the front of the classroom and he's able to extend himself all the way to the end.
And his eyeballs like gouging.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about the penis. We're going to talk about the vagina. Sexual intercourse. And we will definitely be talking a lot about masturbation. And they come running out, like the doors just like fly open, and they're like,
That was actually, I think the video. One of the videos on that was Vanilla Ice's "I Love You."
Oh yeah,
remember that one where like Vanilla Ice comes on and like starts rapping the love song.
I don't remember.
And they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And then eventually he's like, well, "You know what? He's rapping about love." That's the worst thing about this.
I played with it way too much. I probably spent 15 minutes trying to time that slap perfectly, and eventually I just gave up. I figured there's probably a 2.5 second window here where it plays just fine, and I don't need to find the microscopic perfect line.
No, it's perfect. Because, I mean, it takes so long for those mech things to swing around.
Man, in the original edit of that I got from the boys, that line where we take off sins for "Get Away From Her, You Bitch," they left in the entire walk. And there's like 12 steps she takes in that thing where it's like, gong, gong, gong. And I was like, wow, boys, we cannot use this much footage. I'm going to trim this right at the end.
Well, and I think I may have written it in the script to show the walk up, but I did not mean that. I meant the camera zooming in
it's
on.
It's so long that I went and checked the movie just to make sure, is this really as long as I remember it being? Like, I don't remember that, 10 seconds of walking before that line. I just remember the line.
Which is extra funny because the queen is just sitting there while she's walking up.
Come.
Yeah.
What is this girl doing?
I also loved that scene. You guys did a good job on that script, but I loved that one about how nude is a bitch.
Oh yeah. You know what? That was one where there's nothing sinful about it. She's a kid, and it is exactly how somebody should act in this situation. But every time I watch that, and she goes, "Can I go now?"
Yeah.
I always get this sort of like. There's this sort of like Mary Hart voice type of like thing that happens to me.
Mary Hart voice. It's like the Kramer.
He goes into a seizure.
And so I was like, there's not really anything I can say about this. And then I decided, you know what? For someone who is supposed to act this way, she's a real bitch.
It's the same thing with the kid that played Danny Torrance, like Kubrick. Nobody told him he was in a horror film.
Yeah.
Like he thought he was in just some sort of like play, and he could ride around and all that stuff. He didn't
figure it out during the red rum scene.
No. Like it was years later before like he saw the actual thing. And now I think he was like an high school English teacher in Louisville. The last time I checked.
Interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you think every year he takes a day off and just shows his students the film, but never mentions that it's him?
That would be hilarious.
I hate this movie, teacher.
Yeah, like apparently even the scene where the twins are like, "Come play with us, Danny," and all that, because I don't think they actually they don't mouth that. They don't even say it. I don't think you just hear it.
Yeah,
right?
you just hear it. Yeah.
I think he thought that it was just a movie about him playing in a house or something like that.
That's crazy.
It was Danny Lloyd, and he's a biology professor in Elizabethtown, Kentucky.
Well, you were pretty close though.
Yeah, it's like 40 miles away from Louisville.
I wonder if he had a cameo in Elizabethtown, the movie.
That'd be fun.
Starring Orlando Bloom.
That was definitely the true beginning of the end of
it really was.
Cameron Crowe.
What's funny, he was in one other thing. He was in Will, the story of G. Gordon Liddy.
Of course. Of course he was.
1982.
Of course he was.
He was the young G. Gordon Liddy. Poor bastard.
Yeah. So in other words, he was just in The Shining.
Yeah.
Yes. It was